Hey everyone, Nick from Gallery 7, and what follows is going to be a two-part video about framing a musical score on parchment which is over 500 years old. This is the kind of thing that you want to be very careful and handle correctly, so we did call in our conservator, so enjoy the videos.
I know we've had lots of friends with that trouble.
Now,
So,
what
we
you don't do is pull it off this way because you're afraid it might be stuck to the glass. So you turn it over, take the frame off. I don't think it's stuck. And then you very carefully, oh, nice, yes, beautiful.
Yeah, we looked up where that came from.
Because that helps us know.
It's from the 70s.
Yeah,
And you can
because
tell by the
that helps us
furniture.
date when somebody acquired and framed it. We believe this was framed in the 1960s.
Yes.
Which is about the age of that company with that style and that type of font. Maybe, 70, but probably 60s. So
Dan knows
chant
the story.
is from the, early 500s on up to the present. Now, we've done some research, but first we thought, what a cool, reproduction, and then, wait a minute, look at this. This is, so this is a page from a book. We believe this is from Spain.
There's the binding.
Yeah, we believe this is from Spain in the early 1500s. That you can tell because of, there are a couple of tells on this. There are 5 lines here, and only in Spain were they using 5 lines for chant. In other countries, the standard is 4. Another is that the type of note, the way they wrote this, each of these is a note. That over years that's changed from being round to being fancy things.
Yeah.
Also, these 3 lines, this is, if you know music, this is like a G clef or an F clef.
Yes.
This is a fa clef. And the fact that it has 3 diamonds is a unique period of time as well.
Dan
Now-
spent like 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year's. I didn't see
Really
him
digging in
forever.
deep into this.
Really.
The other is this Bookman font, which in a certain era, it was really ornate writing. And in another area, it was very simple. Another piece is the actual vellum. This is from a book, and the reason this is dark here is because their hands would turn the page.
Oh, you're right.
So then
Yes.
we did a little more research on the actual words here. That this is et non tanget illos tormentum malitiae. And this is posuerunt mortalia aseru, and then it continues on the next page. And that we've also narrowed down for what missal that was from. This was typically used in a Spanish or really any Catholic church
Yeah.
on special days. So here it says Festa Julii. That's a July festival. And these words that we found in a reprint of a book from that era say this was a celebration of many martyrs done in this date. And these words, we track those down. Another tell is that you can see little pencil lines.
Yes.
So that means it was hand done.
Oh, you can tell it's hand done. I mean, just look at this.
Yeah. I mean,
The thing about getting this flat is, if you look at it now, it is flat.
Right.
What framing will do, and like kind of doing an actual ceiling up the back and everything, you put it in a chamber, so to speak. And so it has a kind of a modified humidity.
Atmosphere.
It just means that when your house goes to 20% in the winter or 80% in the summer, inside the frame, it takes a lot longer to get that way.
Yeah.
So the skin has its chance to just sort of ebb and flow the way it wants to.
okay.
If you just suddenly just left this outside, it's going to want to crinkle up really quick Cause it's gotta accommodate all the stress in it.
Yep.
Exactly. And it was in a frame, and what was backing it was a piece of cardboard from Arvin Furniture. I
Oh, yeah.
still
Yeah.
have that in
We
the
still
car.
have.
And I kind of freaked out because I'm like, cardboard acid, it's gonna be a wreck on the back. But they waxed the cardboard, so it kind of secured it from the acid leaching into
Is that a
the-
legitimate thing that they did then?
Well, I would have to know what the wax was made of, but
Yeah.
I can
Right.
tell what the wax was made of
That's
because
decided.
that was against the cardboard.
That was against the
Yeah,
cardboard.
I could tell you that already.
Oh.
That's because the wax was alkaline. That's why it's still white. And the front is this color.
And alkaline would do what?
That, when you prepare parchment or animal skin,
Yeah.
use lye, things like that,
Okay,
really
yes,
caustic.
exactly, yes, they're very
That's
caustic.
alkaline.
Yeah.
And so sun damage or light damage or damage from cardboard is the opposite, it's acidic.
Acidic, yes.
So whatever wax they were using
Mhm.
probably had some alkaline feature in it,
Yeah.
Okay.
and that's what kept that from happening. And then all the sun damage, which would normally go straight through to the back,
Oh,
Yeah.
so you, so.
just ended up sitting right here on the
I
side.
read that the parchment, the calfskin, the outer part is darker than the inner part.
Well, it's
Is
just
it?
like your skin.
Yeah, if you took it off, yeah.
If you flake
Ew.
yourself.
You flayed
Let's
yourself
not
with
try
it.
that.
If
So
you
that's how
watch
you can
Game of
tell, sometimes
Thrones-
you can tell that from the grain when you look at it.
Yes.
Sometimes you can see where the elbow joint is on lesser parchment.
Okay.
This is a big sheet, so you're not gonna find that.
Right.
That's how you can tell what type this is. This could be calf or sheep.
Yeah.
That's why they call it a sheepskin when you graduate from college.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
That's the difference. Big ones, you're not gonna be goat, that's just not the way it is. Cause you would be able to see the spine where that was.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
But in terms of, and this is like where everyone's thumbprint is.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes,
right.
Yeah,
right.
that's what you
Which
said,
you look
Dan,
at
yeah.
this, it's the
Same
same
thing.
thing you see
Yeah.
there.
Well, that's because you have
Yep, right,
Yeah.
and flipping the pages.
and your oils.
This, Brian, what do you think, like a good, the space in there, at least a half inch? Or maybe even 3/4, I mean, how, because this is already coming up. Is it okay if it comes up and gently grazes the glass, or we want it not
There's,
to?
you make it as generous as you can without making it look like a shadow box.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But you gotta understand that because it's a skin, you can't go out of your way to restrict it onto the
Mhm.
backboard too
Yeah.
much.
Yep.
Cause one, it could tear, two,
Mhm.
parchment's way stronger than that board, and it'll just draw it up.
Right, so,
So it'll deform, it'll try to find a way to relieve stress in itself.
Yeah.
And I've seen, whole boards, get pulled up. That's another reason why they made those out of wood, because they had to resist all of the pressure in there. And traditionally, the way you would mount them, and this goes way back, is you would get small linen thread.
Hold on, when you say mount like a page like this?
You know
yeah.
how to get it down onto the backing board.
Exactly.
It's gonna
So
be
how
framed.
you would mount it onto this to keep it restricted, they would get linen string of a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
You put it down and you take a knife and you fray the end, so it looked like this, right,
Yeah.
like the delta of the Nile.
Yeah.
And then you adhere that to the back
Oh,
of this.
yeah. Yeah.
And then you would do that every 1/4 inch,
Wow.
all around, because you're trying to make it able to uniformly move and expand any way it wants to.
Yeah.
And the linen, the thread of a certain size, is made so that it is compatible or sympathetic,
Mhm.
and it wants to expand and contract at the same rate
Yeah.
as the parchment.
Yeah.
That's why how they traditionally did that. Later on, people like us started using Japanese paper strips, which would go
Right.
full length all the way around, to create basically a drum.
Yeah.
And it would
Okay.
allow it to expand and contract, picking the paper that was sympathetic with the parchment.
Brian, let me ask you something. So, but why wouldn't you hang it from the top, and that way it could just reach its equilibrium? You're saying to sort of tack it all the way around.
No, I said this is the way it used to be done.
Oh, okay.
It's
yeah.
found not to be necessary, because when you had to mount it that way, you didn't have any chamber you could put it in.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yes, yeah.
So
that
once
makes
you have
sense.
a better
Yeah.
place to put it inside of, you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
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 It's irrelevant. It's actually, it's dangerous. So just doing it like you would normally a print, sometimes on larger ones, people come down and just put very small ones here to keep it from wanting to furl up. But that the only thing I would recommend.
Brian, I think I'm gonna do a through hinge with mulberry paper and rice starch or wheat starch for this?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, and rice starch. And so I want your final recommendation as to whether we should tack the bottom or just let it hang. Do you have a
No, I would tack the bottom.
tack the bottom a little
Just
bit?
2 small ones.
Right, and
very
I'm
thin.
right, and when I take the through, when I put the through hinge through, you know, I'm not gonna pull it tight. I'm gonna leave it a little like this, right? Just
Yep.
a little looseness so it can just kind of.
That's,
How much stuff is gonna show through this parchment. My thought was just to, so this is now the back of the whole thing, have something like this. We want to come in as much as possible, have some support. Do my through hinge to here, and then the glass on front, glass on the back here. The front will be floated. So the front, does it make sense? The front, you're gonna see this. And then back, the through hinge is gonna come to here. Does that make sense?
it does, but you're gonna have to make some compromise
Right, okay.
with, when you, people do this all the time with this article. They want both sides to be seen, people do it with prints.
Okay.
The back and the front, in this case, they're not gonna be the same.
Right.
So whatever ends up being best to mount this for the front,
Front. Mhm.
some compromise, aesthetic compromise, is just gonna have to take place on the back.
Yes.
Right,
As
but
long
you
as
feel
it's-
structurally we're okay.
I think structurally you're fine. I mean,
Okay.
you're gonna have the sandwich around its border no matter what.
We would really love to thank Bryan Owen of Bryan Owen Conservation in Concord. I've never framed a 500-year-old parchment before, and when I run into something like this, I consult with Bryan because he really knows what he's doing. The information we got from him was invaluable. I also want to thank Eva and Dan, our clients, because they came in last March. It is now September, and they have been patiently waiting for this to come in because it's been on back order. This is a fillet. It goes around the inside of the frame. You'll see that when we get to it. But this fillet's different than most. It's wider. So it makes the lip that the artwork sits against inside the frame wider. And that gives us room to do what we need to do with this piece. This may not all make sense right now, but as we film the project, it will over time. You'll go, oh yeah, now I get it. So what's going to happen is there's going to be the glazing, in this case, a UV glass. There's going to be the parchment mounted on a piece of mat board. There's going to be a backing board behind the mat board to keep it rigid enough. The mat board also will have a window cut in it, so when you turn the frame around, you can see the back of the parchment. And then there's going to be another piece of glass on the back of it. There's also going to be a spacer so nothing's pressing up against the parchment. So that whole little sandwich is going to be tape sealed together as one unit with an acid-free tape that's made for doing just this. And so you've got the glass, the parchment, the mat board, all taped together, one solid unit. That then drops into the frame. So quite a complicated project. As we move forward, you'll get a better sense of what we're doing, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay guys, we are well underway in our parchment project, the thing that is well over or about 500 years old or even older. The fillet is finally in the frame. This is what the holdup was. It took months to get. And now let's look at where we stand with the parchment. The parchment has been mounted down with through hinges. We talked about rice starch paste. It would not stick to this. If we look at the back, we use the Lineco gummed linen tape activated with distilled water. And what you see here is the entire piece is sitting on Mylar, which is completely inert. So the piece is not in contact with the mat board. Now the next thing that's going to have to happen is going to be the hard part. These are the spacers I just cut. And I have to double up on them. And I'll put this here so you can see better. These go like this. It will go all the way around. Actually, I've got that the wrong way there. These will go like this. When it's going to go all the way around, and then the glass goes on top. So once the glass is on here, we'll show you this kind of when we get to it. When the glass is on here, we use a acid-free sealing tape that's going to tape on the lip of the glass and wrap around and tape underneath the underside of the package, so the whole thing will be sealed. All right, I've got one more thing to show you. Be back in a second. Well, here's an exciting shot. This is actually called Coroplast. It is a completely archival, inert plastic product that does not off-gas. It's the safest thing in the world. And remember, we showed you the back of this earlier. Now, our client does want to see the back, so I have to cut a window out of the Coroplast. So this whole thing will be sitting on the Coroplast like this. Of course, there'll be a window cut in the Coroplast. And then we make and tape that whole sandwich together. Should be interesting. All right, so now, this is the front as we showed you before. Let's talk about the back. Again, this is the Mylar, the through hinge. Then on goes a piece of Coroplast. This needs to be on something rigid. And then, to just make the back a little prettier, we add a mat board. So now, there'll be a piece of glass back here. The spacers will be all along here. And then when the time comes, we'll show you taping the whole thing together. Okay, so I'm ready to start assembling this. Here are all the pieces. This is the frame of the fillet. This is the regular glass, which is going to go on the back. This is the art glass, which hopefully you can't see too well. That's going to go on the front. And here are the spacers. There were a lot of considerations in making this. First of all, we don't want anything that's going to off-gas. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. So what's going to happen is when the spacers go on, and then the glass goes on the top and the bottom, then what happens is you tape around that whole thing. A little bit of tape goes on the top piece of glass, wraps around the side, comes down under the bottom piece of glass. So everything is encapsulated. And what makes this difficult is it would be so much nicer if these could be made of wood. But wood off gases, I'd have to tape the wood and do stuff to deal with that. So these need to be really nice and thick to be sturdy enough. These are 2 sheets of 8-ply rag museum board with a sheet of this same board, which is museum board, on both sides to make a nice thick spacer. So now we can see that. I showed you the front before. I've got the back all done. We put a mat board on the back just so it looks a little bit better. Now, normally what I would do in order to attach this mat board to the Coroplast is I would use a double-sided acid-free tape. That can off-gas. So what I had to do was scuff up the Coroplast so the glue can grab onto it. So this is sort of tacked on here with a acid-free PVA glue. And this one is tacked onto the Coroplast with a acid-free PVA glue as well, which does not off-gas. So now we have this whole package nicely built. Now the hard part. My gloves come off. The tape we're using is self-adhesive frame sealing tape from Linaco. It does not off-gas. It's made exactly for this purpose. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start laying out my spacers. Now I have to check and make sure that I've got the really nice clean side facing. One mistake, you know, you could work on this for 3 hours, and one mistake, you miss one little thing, like that little dot there, it's just something in the mat board, and you are just set yourself up for 5 more hours of work. Literally, to take something like this apart. There, all set. So let's see, that's the nice clean side. Goes like that. Now, what I'm going to do is, and I've never done it this way before, I've encapsulated things, but never with such a big spacer. So what I'm going to do now is come and tape this corner together. Now you'll notice that these are cut at a 45 degree, or not, well, just cut at an angle, which gives me a sharper, it's sharper and crisper where they meet. Okay, so let's flip this around and let's do the other one. All right.